Welcome to the Aesthetics Injector Gang podcast. Having a gang of mentors in this industry has been a blessing that we wanted to share with you. Our core group has been traveling together and comparing notes about life and business for years. Tune in as we delve into topics with others in the industry that you are sure to love and make you laugh.
Hey guys, it is another episode, season 2 of the Aesthetics Injector Gang podcast with me, Valerie, out of St. Pete. I've been a little absent at the beginning of this year, but I am back with Morgan Gale. He and I planned this last year, and just time constraints and life and just everything kind of pushed us back. So we figured we're just going to get it on the books and get it over with. I think we had to push it a week out, but it doesn't matter. Here we are. Morgan
Give
Gale
people what they want. That's what we're doing. Give people what they want.
Morgan is an aesthetic nurse practitioner. He is the proud owner, injector provider at the Aesthetic Artistry. And I just come to find out, I thought he just had 2 locations, one in Arlington and Annapolis, but come to find out there is a 3rd location I was unaware of in North Bethesda. So he is busier than I thought he was. Arlington is launching and their grand opening soon. So I know he's like on the verge right now, but he's keeping it together for us today. He is the co-founder of the Aesthetic Multiplier, which he can touch on for you guys as well. A speaker for Cartessa, an AMI trainer. He has just now started speaking for Versa. So he's also the king of lasers as we know it. He's the guru in the group. So just kind of wanted to hop on here and just talk all things lasers.
Totally.
Kind of introduce yourself to everybody.
Let's see. Hi, my name is Morgan. I am, in fact, an aesthetic nurse practitioner. I have been in aesthetics for about 22 years. Don't let the face fool you. It's what happens when you have all these toys. You get to do them all to yourself first before you try them on the patients. So I haven't aged a day in 22 years. No, I mean, I've been in aesthetics for 22 years. I was originally actually a rep for a laser leasing company. So I leased lasers all over the DMV area. Got my nursing license in about 2006. Started doing the treatments for doctors kind of like as a pseudo laser center in 2007. Opened my first laser center inside of another plastic surgery group office in 2009. Grew that, opened up another location in 2014. And then from there, I opened Aesthetic Artistry, the original one in the North Bethesda Rockville location in 2018, right into 2019. Opened up Annapolis shortly thereafter. And then Arlington, here we are in 2024 and open for business. So that's kind of like the short and sweet version. Teaser, if you want the real story, come to Aesthetic Multipliers. I will fill you in on all the trials and tribulations of coming up through aesthetics in 22 years. Because I can tell you right now, what I did in 2002 is not what I am doing now. A lot has changed.
Yeah. That is like the attenuated, like that's like his short version of everything. He and I probably talked for 20 minutes before we even jumped on the podcast. And it's just, when you have a provider that has the experience that you come with, not only in nursing, but you were doing something before nursing in the field of aesthetics, and we don't like saying the industry. We all have that like quirk about us. That's a medical field. Yep. So when you bring that background, it's really powerful because you have the experience outside of nursing, then you have it inside of nursing as well. And you also have it in business. So you're kind of like a triple threat.
Well, thank you. No, I mean, you talk about like specialty, not an industry. Ironically, I technically have been part of both. I was in the industry as like the sales rep, pushing lasers around town. And then once I got my nursing license and became part of the specialty, it's an interesting kind of turn of perception of like, what am I doing with these devices? I mean, when I'm the rep, like what am I doing is trying to get them in the hands of every provider I can find to use them because that's what, pays my salary. But then as the healthcare provider now, I'm looking at the devices that I had sold or new ones that I brought in. And I mean, a lot goes into like, what am I doing with this device? How is it going to benefit my patients? How's it going to benefit me financially? I mean, like, all of those things kind of come into play when you start talking, jumping from like doing injectables to devices, because reality of devices, right? It's a huge initial cost versus like an injectable. I mean, like you buy a box of filler and it's a couple $100.
Mm-hmm.
I can't buy a laser for under, I mean, we were just talking like the ones coming in that are like off the street. Hey, I got this sweet, like, ooh, check out what I got, $50,000 to just like walk a box in my door. I mean, that's a huge financial burden versus like buying filler. Like if I buy some filler and then I use the filler and then I can buy some more filler and then I use some more filler, and you can grow incrementally like that. But when you're talking devices, your initial payment on this device is a huge risk, and you have to be able to mitigate that risk, either because you've got the patients to come in, you've got the buzz of like, people want to come see you, whatever you have, whatever the reason is, that device needs to be used. You cannot own a $50,000+ paperweight, and that, some of the things that I'm buying are $150,000.
Yeah.
So like, I can't have a $150,000 paperweight. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think as a new practice owner, that was like the biggest question, because like you said, you have people that will find your office and they come in and they promise you the moon. They're trying to sell you a device, and I'm not saying they're bad devices. They're not bad people.
No.
But for me, like I'm self-funded. I haven't borrowed money. Like I work on the weekends. I'm paying for all of this myself. So when a device rep comes in and gives me this little magical ROI paper that says you can make this money back in just one grand opening, and it sounds great, and it is very elating and exciting, and as a practice owner, you want your practice to grow, and like I want a laser, like I really do. I've wanted one for a long time, but at the end of the day, I have to think about how many weekends do I have to work to pay for that if nothing else is paying for it. That takes time from my family. That takes time from my personal life. It takes money out of my bank account. That's not even part of the business. So I really was like, I have to get Morgan on here and we have to talk about this, because I think so many people can get bamboozled, might be like a mean word, but led down a path where, it's like build it and they will come kind of thing. And I don't necessarily know if that's the right thing with a device that's costing you $250. I mean, they get expensive, and you know that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, reality, like to touch on everything, the magic ROI sheet is, I mean, like you find me the practices that worked on, and I'll show you 15 that practice, that ROI sheet just kind of was all smoke and mirrors. I mean, yeah, like the reality of that ROI sheet, just to start out, is simply, that's just the assumed, I bought laser, I sold practice, I sold packages for X amount, and then that was the end. What is the utility cost of the device? What is your overhead for the entire practice? Like that's not like your ROI. That's like your net. That's not your gross. Take like 80% out of the number that you think that ROI sheet is really giving you, and that's probably closer to what you're getting, at least in the front end. And now you're not even talking about, most of these companies have figured out, if I do a disposable, I have a tip, I have a card. I mean, you're linked to them for life. You can't even turn the device on without calling them to get another cycle, another tip, another this, another that. So like in the beginning, like when I was doing lasers originally, almost everything was buy it and use it. So at least like, yeah, you paid $100,000 for a device, but like once you hit that number, there was no more thing you needed to get. You just kept using the device and you made your money back, however quickly you could. Now, these things, it's like, oh, it's $100 a tip. It's like $50 a cycle. It's like $80 for what, I don't, you name it. They've figured out a way to make all of the parts disposable, even like the hand pieces now. I mean, some of these companies tell you there's no disposable, but the handpiece has 10,000 cycle, or like whatever, 50,000 cycles on it. Well, it's a disposable. You just made it, like, oh, it takes 50,000 cycles, and then you have to buy another one. Also, the handpieces are $80,000. Like, wait a minute. Surprise. So, I mean, these are the problems that like the companies aren't they're going to gloss over it. They'll say it in very fine print and really fast language. And as a provider, like just kind of like getting into like the positive side of these devices, they have a place in aesthetics. As a specialist in the industry, I find a need for me because I kind of grew up in this business through lasers. So like I've always been one that has liked having lasers in my practice. I like being able to treat brown pigment and redness and texture and acne scars, with devices and injectables. I like being able to do both of those things. So for me, it was always important to have devices in my practice. I've been lucky enough that coming up through the business as a rep, you get to see a lot of pieces of equipment. So I kind of learned relatively quickly what works and what doesn't, just as like a general science. That's the other thing. Like you look at some of the devices out there and they're touting results. And for me, like looking, and like I won't nerd out too much with you on this podcast, but like
nerd out, I love it.
if you want to get deep in the weeds, that'll be like part 2, 3, and 4. No, but like the idea that certain things do certain things really well, which completely makes sense to me scientifically. So like if I need to treat a wrinkle, there are certain types of devices I like for treating wrinkles. If I need to treat active acne, there are certain things I like for treating active acne. So that gave me some foundational knowledge of like when you come in here and tout your whatever device that's like, oh, I can do like skin tightening and hair removal and treat acne and get rid of tattoos. I'm like, no, you can't. No, you can't.
Yeah.
Unless your laser is the size of a small bedroom, because it's basically 5 boxes, 5 different lasers in a box. And I know how big those lasers are. Even now when they're small, you can't cram that much stuff into one box. It is physically impossible.
I had gone to a conference for lasers specifically, and knowing like ground level, like nothing, like tell me what a laser is. Most people don't know what laser stands for, because it actually stands for something. Google
it is an acronym. It is not a word.
Your homework. I'm not giving you the answer, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's like feverishly on their phone Googling it right now.
Yes, please feel free to Google, or you know what? Or text me, I'll tell you.
Or text me, I'll tell you. Morgan. So what I found interesting was it was a lot of like education, but not a lot of understanding. And so I never felt safe even firing one after a 2-day conference. So when you make the point about like making sure like you know what you're doing with a laser, like a lot of these reps will come in and they can tell you all this stuff you can do with it. And they'll tell you like, yeah, you can hurt people with it too, but nobody really tells you like the technology behind it. They just say we have the best technology. Well, what is that technology? Like
they always do.
Yeah. Like where's your water light emittance, and like what are the red pigments and what are the brown pigments and what are the nanometers behind that, and it's a lot of information. So it's interesting to me because like as a practice owner now, I want a laser because I like what certain lasers can do. I like ablative lasers. I think they're good for my small patient population I have.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you and I kind of touched on before we started recording, like you can't be good at everything. We know providers that don't have lasers in their office and they're booked. They don't need a laser. So I kind of just wanted to like pick your brain about like, you were doing lasers before you owned your own practice. You were doing them with other physicians. He even has great stories about hauling them around in the back of his car. We can get into that also. But just kind of like if you're a new practice owner and you are kind of thinking about it, like what are some questions you should ask yourself, I guess?
So, I guess to circle back to one thing, the reality of lasers and something that I'm trying to put on myself, because I have so much time,
Free time,
is that I'm trying to bring to light the fact that lasers have tended to trend more into like strictly derm, like all the big time speakers, all the big time laser stuff that gets put out there is usually by derms. And only recently, and honestly, mostly because of social media, certain devices will get a little more play because like certain, starlets and like reality peeps are like using it on various things and looking great. And then all of a sudden, like 100,000 patients are all saying, wait, I want that too.
Yeah.
And now you're finding like, oh, well, maybe I should bring this into my practice. I will tell you that just because some people on TV get it done isn't going to get a lot of butts in your chair, so to speak. Um, but the things that some of them are doing, in fairness, are at least reputable companies. So what it should do is at least give you some bit of information about, like, at least I should look at that company, maybe not that device, because maybe my patient base is in Florida and has a lot of sun damage, and they really need to handle that sun damage. Or maybe my patient base tends to just be like a lot of crepey skin, and we need to deal with some collagen stimulation on top of maybe like injecting a biostimulator, or we need to do something for some skin tightening, and we need to get some bulk heating under the skin. And the best way to do that is with certain types of devices. In terms of like figuring out the companies, I mean, to me, the ones that have been around the longest, while unfortunately tend to be the most expensive, are also going to be the most reliable, from like a just functionality standpoint, meaning like, just to use Candela as a particular one. I love Candela. I don't speak for Candela. I own several of them though. They last forever. And the company has withstood the test of time. They tend to put a very nice product out there. Their reps tend to be very knowledgeable. So I like their particular devices. Conversely, there are some other companies, like, for example, there was a company called Palomar. Palomar was a great company that had a really nice IPL. Well, unfortunately, their company did a really bad job with a lot of things related to marketing, related to research, but like their company basically got bought and sold a bunch of times. Companies like Cynosure that has been around for a while. I think they actually just got bought by Lutronic. So this is just other things that I do. Like, where are these companies that I know from before? Because that's going to tell me, do I want to deal with them now? It's hard. That's probably the hardest question I can answer, because for me, a lot of what I do in terms of purchasing devices is based on my relationship with the rep, because at the end of the day, if you sell me $150,000+ machine, I don't know if you're allowed to say bad words on this podcast, but I will bleep someone up if they sell me this device and like just, oh, hey, Morgan, peace out. I'll call you when the next one's for sale. Like, I mean, you can't do, like, if that's going to be how this is going to work, I can assure you I will figure you out and you will not be coming back into my office ever. And I can tell you stories about those reps because they have come back and we had to tell them to kindly leave.
Yeah. And even I think if you have a medical director as well that's been for a long time, like, I always say, like, make sure your medical director has background in derm or plastics, because one, you need a resource for if you end up, if you end up the creek. And two, if they've been doing it long enough, they know about these companies, they know about the machines, they know about the cost of them, and my medical director is very good that he's like, do not do that. It's too much money. There's no reason to do that right now. Or he says, go look at that company's stock right now. They're restructuring. And
it is so funny. I was going to say, I mean, I don't want to sound silly, but like the publicly traded companies, you'll know which ones are good based on where their stock portfolio looks. Especially, I mean, you don't have to look at like the last 4 months. Just click either the 3-year, the 5-year, or the all, and just see it doesn't, like, we don't need Bitcoin, we don't need Apple, but like, I need to know that you didn't do this and you release some products and then your stock did this.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that tells me that you don't know what you're doing in terms of devices.
Yeah, I had a company in my office, and they love to solicit you. They'll just walk right in. You could you could have somebody you're doing a BBL on, and they're just like, "Hey," they like walk in the room, "Hi," and this is like rep bashing. We're not here to bash reps. I know that some people are very strict about like, there's no soliciting, and I feel that way because if I am with patients, that's my time with my patient. But the particular company that was in there and then brought, like the manager in to talk to me and that person's manager, and they really wanted to sell me this $189,000 piece of equipment. And I talked to my medical director about it, and he was like, they're restructuring their company. Like, just be very wary because they're trying to dump products, they're trying to dump lasers. And this is the industry. Like, this is the part where we, you and I are medical specialists, but there is an industry behind it. And
at the end of the day, like, your job is to research the industry and the products that they're bringing out and provide the best ones for your patients with the best and safest outcomes, really.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's true. When you look at company portfolios, you will start to notice the companies that have put out devices and they've continued to put out quality products. Their stock just tends to kind of edge up. I mean, I would not. This is not an investment podcast. Do not invest in these companies. I mean, some of them do hit. Like if you got Cool Sculpting like way early when it was Zeltique, congrats, you did real well. But the reality of a lot of these devices, just from like the standpoint of what are you looking for? I mean, it goes all the way back to the original discussion, which is what is your practice in need of? I mean, like, what does your patient base have? Look, if you have a patient base of younger millennial types, some photofacial type stuff, some IPL, BBL, like mild, mild resurfacing, like a non-ablative resurfacing, or like an RF microneedling. These are all nice devices. They will get good skin rejuvenation. You'll get some nice production of collagen. Yeah. If your population is like 55 and up, I mean, those devices are, you could zap some brown spots, but like, I mean, Nana and Pop-Up need a lot more than that. No offense.
Nana and Pop-Up might need a facelift.
Yeah, but, but like those types of patients maybe need full ablative CO2 or like some type of hybrid device that's ablative and non-ablative. You could mix in, like I said, you could mix in some red and brown treatment, but at the end of the day, their skin requires way more work from a laser than an IPL or a BBL. Those are just a waste of time on those patients. So it just comes down to like, what are you trying to accomplish with your practice? And I mean, like you said, we know people that have no devices in their practice. We know people that have several. We know people that have two. There's not a wrong answer. I think that's the one thing like anybody listening to this needs to understand. The answer is whatever works for your practice. You don't need a device if you don't want one. You can add a device if you feel like you have the patients that might be of a benefit to it. Do your research on your companies. Don't be afraid to check their stock portfolio. Do your due diligence on this rep. Like, I mean, like the fact that we have a gang makes it easy because like I can call you, I can call the rest of our gang and say like, hey, you had this company come through. Like, what do you think? I mean, I honestly have people that I'm friendly with from other conferences that will text me and be like, ironically, literally today, one of my good friends down in Georgia texted me and she sent me a picture of a device that she was demoing. She's like, what exactly do I do with this? I was like, what did you you didn't buy it, did you? She said, no, but funny, like you bring up the story of the rep, like rolling into her office. She was like, he just kind of rolled in with this thing and was like, hey, do you want to check it out? I'm like, okay, first off, like I need to do a little look. Yeah. Let me look and see what this thing even is. I had to Google it myself because I hadn't heard of the company. And generally I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here. Understand, please. If I haven't heard of the company, it means that I don't know who's part of it because I generally know at least one of the executives, like at this point, that has opened up like they were the head of research and development for Candela, just to bring up that company again, or like the head of research and development for like another company who I happen to trust, whatever it is, and they decided to open up their own company. I understand that because I mean those people I respect as developers of technology, you know what I mean, versus like the sales rep. Like I've had sales reps jump from company to company and I'm not about to like buy 7 things from them. I mean, the first time you jump to a company, I may give it a more serious look because I trust you. The third time you jump, I mean, now I know you're just going for the paycheck. Like we can be like, I'll be friends with you. I mean, if I liked you, we're still friends, but like, I'm not buying your stuff, man. Yeah. You've clearly decided that you've gone the route of the industry and you're trying to take advantage of the industry. And that's not for my practice.
Yeah. And I mean, like I just had a conversation with a rep, I don't know, maybe like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, who knows, time is like an illusion to me right now. But, I'm very candid about my financial situation when I talk to these reps, because I need them to understand, like, I don't have that payment for, I don't have it for a $55,000 machine right now, let alone whatever you're doing.
Mm.
And I went through the process and applied for the financing last year for 2 lasers that I really liked. And of course, it's like end of the year, so you're getting a special package deal. It's Christmas time, like you can write it off, da da da.
Oh yeah.
I kind of just like put it in the hands of like, this is meant to be or it's not. And my financing went through. And because I'm a new company myself, it was like, well, we can finance that for you. We can get you a great interest rate, but we need you to bring 10 or 20,000, something ridiculous to the table. And I said, you know what? Probably just not meant to be.
Yeah.
And I respected this rep so much because he said, I understand. He's like, can I talk to you Q3 or Q2 next year and let's see where you're at?
Yeah.
100% you can, my friend. Like, thank you for backing off. Thank you for giving me space. And thank you for understanding like my financial situation right now. And there are some reps that are like, I'll get you under $1,000 a month. You're never going to get this deal again. Like, you got to buy this now. You know, there's a lot of pushers out there. And I think for like, you know, I'm a solo provider, kind of like Ashley, like I'm by myself in the office and you're like, no, you know, I'm not confrontational. I'm like, no, thank you. So you can't get pushed into making those decisions, I think. And it's, you have to act like, this is my business. This is my money. At the, like, you know, if you're not taking a paycheck from your company, I think you really need to consider like what you're doing. You know, we talked you know, like $50,000, that's a car payment, you know.
I mean, it's, you know, it's a down payment on a house. It's a lot of things. And if you don't have a plan for what you're going to do with this device, it is a $50,000 toilet flush. So, you know, you know, I never want to say bad things about like the reps that we do business with, because I mean, they are people too. They have to earn a living. I understand.
Yeah.
But the ones that I tend to continue to do business with, the ones that I have bought multiple devices from, are always the ones that will come in. They will tell me about something that is either new to market, or maybe they have something going on promo wise where they have like, you know, the old 2-for-1. And they're like, I just want you to have this because like, if you want to do it, I'll get it done for you. And they'll just sort of leave it at that, because they know, I mean, with my history, they know that if it's something I want, I buy it. I mean, I have never been afraid to pull the trigger on a device that I've wanted in my practice. They all know that, or the ones that know me know that, and the ones that don't know me and try to push, those are the ones that we ask to leave, and then they don't ever come back. So like, it's so hard, you know, like when we originally like talked about having this podcast, it's so hard to like nail down like the things you really want to hit home about, because everybody has a different question about what lasers are supposed to do for them. You know, some are asking like, I don't even know what this thing does. And that's, you know, that tells me like, I wish you could come and hang out with me and we would just go through like laser fundamentals and I would explain to you why this works, why this doesn't, why this device is a great device, regardless of the company. I mean, because obviously like a CO2 is a CO2, you know, you get one versus like some of these other like random wavelengths that are like, we do CO2 results and none of the downtime, you know, and I feel like I'm listening to like an infomercial, and, you know, I'm looking at this rep and their paperwork and this like, you know, magic thing that they do where they did like 2 patients in a study and they publish a white paper about the 2 patients. I'm like, your patient base was 2. 2 people got a good result. Are 2 people paying for my laser? Because I mean, so you're telling me that I only need 2 people to have a good result to have this thing paid off? I don't think that's how this works. So,
you know, another important point is like, you know, if you haven't had stats or know how to read the research on these things, like it's very important to understand like, what was your patient population? Like, what was your exclusion criteria? What were the actual conclusions? Like, what was your alpha in this study? You know, and most NP, and I don't even know if undergrad made us take stats because it was 5,000 years ago. If it was very basic for me. But learning how, you know, like I'm like the research nerd. I'm like, I'll find that article, like, and I like to read through them, and you look at it and you're like, well, this is crap because of X, Y, and Z. Make that good point of like, they hand you these studies, and if you don't know how to interpret them really well or read through the long, you know, the long arbitrary details of the research study, it can be detrimental to you as well because you don't know what they're talking about.
Yes. That's like, between the, like, just like touching on the stock concept, the white paper concept is something you should certainly look at when you're trying to figure out what you are buying. The reputable companies will go and do research on, several dozen, sometimes several hundred patients.
Yeah.
The ones that don't will do like it's like a white paper, but it's basically an abstract, and they did it on like one or two people and they got a good result. And that was like sort of how they showed, like, see what happens when we use this laser on this patient in this way, and you get this result. And I'm like, you've literally just narrowed my field of what I should hopefully expect to. This is my patient base of what will hopefully be a good outcome.
That huge buy that they just handed you.
Exactly.
Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. For those of you listening to the podcast, I assure you, my fingers that I just pinched together were very, very close together.
How the size of his little, like his iris and his eyeball. Yeah. It and this isn't, again, it's not a rep bashing thing. It's not but again, like when you get into the quote unquote industry of this, it to me is no different than, my relationship with my injectable reps.
Mm-hmm.
I need support from them. I need research on your products. I will not say which product I'm talking about, but very recently a product came out. It was launched. I read their study and I said, I can't back what they're offering. Like, I can't back that. And I think an important point as a new provider is you cannot afford to deal with results that are not going to hold up to the quote unquote research. So if you tell someone, I'm going to do this IPL on your face and your pigment's going to get brown and blah, 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 and it's going to fall off and you're going to look great and you're going to be 20 years old again. Mm-hmm. And that patient comes in and they still have brown spots and they still have malar edema and they have bags under their eye, and you promise, I don't know, say you promise, but you're like, oh, the results are great on this machine. Mm-hmm. And that person's going to come back and they're going to say, I gave you $3,000 and I don't see any difference.
Yeah.
And you're going to pull up the before and afters and they're not going to see a difference. And now you're retreating. Now you're giving away free stuff. Like, this costs you money.
Yeah. So
I get back to those white papers. Like, it's great what they say that it can do. You need to understand the performance. You need to understand your reason for having it. And that goes with any product that we're carrying in our office, whether it's a microneedling pen or a chemical peel or whatever it is. It's got to have backing and you have to know what you're doing with it. But side note, because I have ADHD, I wanted to ask you about, because I think when people are thinking about buying stuff, they think, well, I'll just get a used laser. I want all your thoughts on that because I can see you smiling right now. Go for it.
I will tell you that without question, there are certain devices that you should be comfortable purchasing from a third party that is reputable. I mean, do not go on eBay. Please look into my eyes if you're watching this video, or listen to my voice very, very closely. Do not buy a device on eBay. Thank you. There are third-party providers that I work with. Some of them service my equipment. I trust them implicitly because they service my equipment, and therefore, if they bring me a laser that I'm going to buy from them, they've serviced it in a similar fashion. So yeah, there are certain devices that I will tell you that if you were thinking about getting something, you will certainly be able to purchase a nice option from a third-party provider. However, there is a huge issue if the company has a disposable that you need to purchase and they make you recertify the device because you didn't buy it originally. And that's how they get you to basically kind of pay, not quite the balance, but like magically that, $20,000 device that you bought, or 30 or 40 or whatever, maybe it was like originally 160. And now they're like, well, to come out and recertify it, it's going to be $12,000 to $15,000 plus cost of parts, which they're gonna have to replace some parts. I mean, God forbid the device works perfectly. So let's just assume, for the sake of argument, you're out $20,000 and you spent 50. Now you're up to 70. I mean, you're still under, but like, it's hard.
I want a warranty.
What's that?
I said you still have your cost of consumable, and they're
Oh
probably
yeah. Oh, don't even listen. Don't even get me started with warranties. We could have a 30-minute podcast about me yelling about warranties because I paid those warranties in the beginning stages of my career as a provider. It was, I mean, like I could have taken money and flushed down the toilet and it would have done me a better service than spending it on, because like the preventative maintenance thing was, pennies on the dollar. And then on the off chance that something broke, 75% of the time it was not covered, air quotes for the podcast people, not covered by the maintenance contract. It was like if a handpiece breaks, oh, the handpiece isn't covered, or like if a lens goes, oh, I'm sorry, the lens isn't covered. It's only what's inside the laser. And then something inside the laser would be like, well, we actually don't really fix that. We have to like charge you for this, and then we can fix that for free. Like it's just always, it was, oh my God. Anyway, so
I wanted to buy a laser.
yeah, to sum up, yes, you can buy a laser from a reputable third-party provider. Just be aware that if it requires disposables, you may be on the hook to basically get it recertified, or you're going to have to buy disposables off the black market, which are also very expensive. There's always catches. That is the funny thing about lasers, is that there's always a catch, right?
Yeah.
You get, unless you're buying a device that doesn't have a disposable, and then the catch is negligible.
Yeah.
Like I said, the companies that I purchase my devices from are typically ones that don't really have a disposable, and they service the same device for me. So like if they come out, they already know the device. They service it as they would normally service any of my devices, and it hasn't cost me extra. That's where I have found my benefit from the third party provider or the used device.
Do they is there like a service so say you like buy a brand new laser,
Mhm.
is there like a service schedule on those? Like are they scheduled services that you have to have and do?
So there is yes and no. I mean, yes, there are like scheduled preventative maintenances, and generally I always recommend, if you're buying from a company, the first thing you do is demand the extra year or two of like extended warranty, and they'll try to fight you on like, well, it's really extra money, we can't really just give that to you. Okay, then I don't really want your device. Oh, well, you know what? I just realized I can actually give it to you. That wouldn't be another topic, would be the art of the negotiation of the laser.
Yeah.
Because it is, I can tell you right now, the longest process. You do never take their first offer. I don't care what it is, unless it's free. If it's free, you please take the offer.
Even then, nothing in life is free, though.
Yeah, right. And even then, read the fine print. But the idea that like the device, you need to understand that the whole point of these reps is like a device costs X, and then the rest is just like profit and commission and whatever. But going back to the servicing idea, like you have to understand that services are only given when they are called for. In other words, you call them and they will come and do it. They're not going to come just do the preventive maintenance. They don't call you to say, hey, your laser hasn't been, the only time they call you is when your warranty that you had when the laser was purchased expires. They remind you how much the extended warranty is now. So that's sort of like, I highly recommend, if you have a laser and it is new and it is coming to the end of its standard warranty when you purchased it, you call them and you say, I really want to do like a preventative maintenance. Oh, okay, Mr. Gale, absolutely. We're happy to do a maintenance for you. Is there anything going on with the laser? No, I just want to, because it just makes sure that the lenses are clean and the filters are good and the pump is fine and the laser head is fine and whatever, 15 other things on any of these devices, the handpiece is working appropriately. You just want to have these things calibrated regularly. I mean, it's like your car. Like you take your car for an oil change every however many thousand miles. It's not because like if you went another 10 miles, it would die. It's that if you keep the oil fresh and the fluids fresh in the car, it will just naturally work better much longer. So same idea with these devices. You need to keep them regularly maintained, especially when it's free.
Yeah.
And then after that, we can kind of get into like the idea, like the service contract, honestly, is just such like a money grab tactic by these companies. There are plenty of third party companies that honestly are able to service almost all of the devices out there. I will tell you, without question, there are probably 3-ish, maybe 4 that if you're buying them, you're stuck because the company basically puts the kibosh on allowing any parts to be like third-party companies can't fix the lasers because they can't get the parts. So the company keeps all the parts in-house, and therefore you have to have them come out to service the device or it just simply will never work again. So that's, again, how these companies keep making their money. They find ways to basically pigeonhole you into, I know you bought this device, but now you need to buy the tips, and now you need to buy the card. Oh, and by the way, you can't buy the parts anywhere but us. So like if something goes wrong, you better call us, and so on.
So an interesting concept. We were just all down in Miami at Swift, and he talks about, God, I feel like so dated and old right now. Comet, the bathroom cleaner, Comet.
Yes.
Green, and like the millennials probably have no idea what this is. It's a green canister. It's like a chalky abrasive powder, like you clean your bathroom with it. And they talked about like their marketing tactics, and they were going through, like, okay, now it's with bleach, and it would be like with this, and it would be with that. And they finally, like, their stock just stayed like the same. Like their sales weren't going through the roof. They just were like kind of staying the same, but they were spending all this money on marketing companies. And one marketing company came in and they said, we guarantee you that we'll increase your sales by X, Y, and Z if you let us take over, blah, blah, blah. So you always think like, well, what did they change? Because now all of a sudden their sales go through the roof. What changed is they put another hole in the top of the can. So what happens is now you're using more product every time you turn it, because it was like in a bottle that you would like out.
I remember it was basically a paper towel holder with like a tin bottom and a tin top with like little holes in it. Oh yeah.
So it was like, you have that like aha moment and realize, God, these guys were geniuses, but you're just using more of the product every time you dispensed it. So I kind of was thinking of that when you're talking about like, well, now you have a consumable and now you have to replace the handpiece and now you need this and you need that. So you have to be careful that, that though you have a good product, it's just that you're spending more on it. And you've been very successful with it. I don't want to like bash and scare people into thinking, oh, why would I ever buy a laser? This sounds terrible. But I think it's all very like valuable things to take away and think about. Like, do you guys cover this at the multiplier?
So we do. I mean, honestly, we do. We have a specific section on devices, and I will get into a little more depth about the devices that I like, why I like them. And I'm not even necessarily talking about brands in this case. I'm talking about like what I like in terms of treating things. Like, what do I like to treat acne scars? What do I like to treat crepey skin? What do I like to treat, sun damage? Because, at the end of the day, the lasers are the lasers, but the technology inside of them is what we are really counting on to do the work for us. Yes, certain companies do the technology a little better than others, meaning like their laser head works a little better, or their handpiece is a little more ergonomic, and maybe it's like their device itself is a little more sleek, or it shoots faster, or it has better cooling. I mean, there are things related to all of these devices that the companies use to sort of separate themselves from each other, because the guts are somewhat similar. But, you have to keep in mind that, kind of circling all the way back to the beginning again, lasers are great. I love lasers. Do not be afraid of lasers. Just know that you shouldn't buy them if it's not going to fit in your practice. I would venture a guess, the people listening to this, a lot of them have given it some thought, and I'd bet a lot of them would probably benefit from having at least one device. I mean, there's just certain things that like, lasers can do that injectables can't. I mean, it's just using sun damage as a perfect example. Actually, it was funny. So teaser, I'm going to say this at Aesthetic Multipliers. And for those of you that listen to this podcast, you'll chuckle a little bit because you already heard it. And this will be the second time you hear it when you're there. You can't Botox a brown spot, and you can't really Botox a vessel. You can try to fill an acne scar, but I can assure you that my CO2 laser is going to do a way better job at dealing with those acne scars than a little filler and some tox and maybe like some mild chemical peels. There are just things that lasers do really, really, really well. And if you have the patience for them, I highly recommend you take advantage of that fact. They in the right practice, they are a huge money maker. I mean, take me for example. I can tell you right now that I think, let's see, I just added another one. So I'm probably up to almost 17 devices spread over 3 offices. And keep in mind, like, obviously some of them are doubles. Like, I have a laser hair removal device in Rockville, North Bethesda, and in Annapolis. I have, multiple RF microneedling devices because I love those. I have multiple CO2 devices because I love them, So, like, there are things that I have twos of. It's not like I have 17 individual things, but the things that I have twos of, I have 2 or even 3 because they work really well and my patients really like them. So they've done well for me. Like if you've listened to the podcast to this point and you think that all I'm doing or all Val and I have really said is like, why would you do this? That's are mean and companies are trying to take your money. When you find the right rep and you find the right device, I can assure you to a level of near certainty that you will be very happy that you bought it. Your patients will love you for it. And not for nothing, this is something that I would argue, I mean, even to the people that don't do devices in our group specifically, it is super important to try to find ways to help separate yourself at least a little bit from the competition around the corner. And like, if it's because you have the really good RF microneedling device and they don't, maybe that tox patient is like, well, I can do my RF microneedling and my tox with you. Why wouldn't I do that? I mean, these are little things that I think about that, I know you as a business owner think about. Like, we consider this because I want to be able to tell my patients that when you come see me, things that you were thinking about doing, I have an answer for you, and I have the answer for you in-house.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, for like, so I know Ashley won't mind us bringing it up. Like, Ashley doesn't own a device. She really doesn't want one. She's like, I don't need one. I don't need to add it to my practice. Yeah. I'm doing just fine without one. So if I add one, what benefit is it really going to give me? Right. So I think if you're that provider, you need to find somebody in the area you trust wholeheartedly. Like, don't decide you're going to start sending your laser patients to X, Y, and Z. It was Ashley and I think Dr. Pittman did their podcast, and he talks about this, because she sends surgical referrals to him. Yes. And his whole thing is like, a patient is going to sit in your chair at one point and say, well, why don't I just do my Botox here? Because I'm already here. And his answer was so powerful to me because he was like, I've known Ashley for a long time. She's a great provider. I trust her with my patients. She trusts me with her patients. But, why don't you continue that relationship with her? Mm-hmm. And I think, like, I don't have a laser. So like, I have someone I refer out to, but I need to know that person's not going to take my tox patient. And they're okay not needing my tox patient. If you send your patient to somebody who's so desperate and hungry for their own patients, they're probably going to take your patient. Yeah. And it's nothing other than business. Like, it's not a personal threat or anything. So if you decide not to carry lasers, I really highly recommend like developing a relationship with a provider or a practice that are going to say, yes, we would love to see all your laser patients and we will keep a professional relationship with you. We will stay in our lane, you stay in your lane, and everyone kind of get along happily. That's going to be hard to find because it's very competitive. It's a very competitive field.
It is. But, interestingly, like, so speaking about the aesthetic multipliers, one of the things we're hoping to accomplish is to create a network of providers so that they have that person, conveniently enough because they met them at the aesthetic multiplier. So, I mean, like, yes, we plan on teaching you a lot, but we also hope that you will make connections like, Val, like you and I have made, Val, with Ashley and the rest of our gang. Like, I mean, between like all of us, there are a lot of people we could potentially lean on for not just like questions, but also, for like Ashley. I mean, Ashley and I being a perfect example because, she's right down the street in Alexandria. Any injectable patient she would ever send to us for a laser treatment, I immediately turn around and send back to her. And she's sent us several, and I love her for it. And they go back and see her for all of their injectable products and their skincare. And I'm fine with that because she and I have that trust, have that relationship. And it's so funny you brought up the podcast that she did because I was thinking of the exact same podcast as you were making the comment. Yeah. But the takeaway I had was the exact same thing of it's like you're not going to get it right every time. It is a little bit like dating. And I know it seems a little silly, but don't be afraid to honestly, if there are people in your area and you're trying to kind of feel out whether they're interested in potentially having like a referral situation set up, I mean, take them out for a drink, take them out for coffee, like meet them on some neutral turf and just kind of like talk shop, like, hey, I do all these injectables. It's really great. I wish I had somebody that I could send for sun damage and like, and body contouring, because I don't do those things.
Yeah.
And for the times that it unfortunately might go the wrong way, and maybe you send one or two patients because you thought it was going to work and they never came back, and you're like, well, clearly that's not going to work because they're trying to take my patient from me. There's going to be the time where it does work, and then you're going to build that relationship, and it's going to be so much better for the both of you.
Yeah.
You will both end up benefiting, and the people that see that and understand it will catch on to the idea of partnering with you much faster, because they see the benefit in you being a person to send them potential clients for lasers. And while they may not necessarily send you Botox patients, maybe they send you, I don't know, like wellness patients. Maybe they don't have wellness, or maybe they don't do body stuff, and you do, like, you'll find that both of you end up having something that you can refer to each other for that will benefit both of you in the end. So, I know it takes time and it's not easy. And, just like Dr. Samanyek said, like, it's not it's not like one and done, I nailed it, like I got the perfect match right away. It is a bit of a dating game. You're going to have to trial and error it a little bit, but you'll find them. And when you do, it's going to benefit you both.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you find that provider you really trust, like, and also this is the other thing, you have to find a provider you trust sending your patients to, because if I promise you, if you send your patient to them, they burn them, don't give them results, anything like that, now you're burned at the end of the day, because they're like, you sent me to them and they damaged my skin.
Yeah.
I had this girl that did my makeup one time. She's African American, and she was talking to me about her skin and like things that I do, and she's like, well, the one girl like hyperpigmented me, and I was like, hyper or hypopigmented you? And she's like, no, I like had dark marks like all across my face. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, probably. She's like, and I've spent years like trying to fix it and this and that and the other. And like, I think about those instances. So like, if you want to send your patients to somebody for lasers, go to them and be like, hey, like, I want to see you try it. Like, do my hands, or like, let me see some of your work. Like, really, like you said, that trusting relationship with them, because they're not going to, like, if they're referring out to you, say maybe all they do is lasers, and they're sending you Botox patients or filler patients. Your filler patients look terrible, and your Botox patients have, uneven eyebrows and they look horrible. Like, they don't want to send you those patients. So, I think everybody can have their happy little spot. Everybody's got to play nice in the sand, but you're going to find not everybody does that.
Yes.
A specialty, and that's okay. You just, you have to figure that out, unfortunately. So
I was going to say, I think the big takeaway of that is it's okay. Like, just like dating, we didn't all get it right on the first time. We had to date a couple people, and listen, for anybody listening that married their high school sweetheart, God love you. Like, you are lucky.
Yeah, it's a fear. Like, just like dating, I think aesthetics is just as fierce of a world out there. Like, it can get hairy, but find the people and stick with the people that you trust. I'm down here in Florida, and I don't have a lot of other injectors I lean on down here. I pretty much am spoiled because I have the gang. So my questions always go to the gang. I lean on them. But as a practice manager, I have to find people that I can develop those relationships with. So super important to have that. We all harp the community over competition. Not everybody's going to be that person for you, though. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You guys probably wouldn't be friends in high school. You probably wouldn't get along at a cocktail party. Like, not everybody's meant for the other person. So
yes, I was going to say, it is okay.
We have unloaded a ton in this podcast. We're coming up on 45 minutes, probably plus now. I think we've been over an hour. Sorry, Brandon. But Morgan has a wonderful microphone. We know. I feel like, did Evelyn get you into this microphone, or have you had this mic for a while?
No, this Evelyn
into it is the question.
I don't know. I know that. I don't know how. I don't know how did Evelyn get into the microphone?
has it with her. She's had it with her at a couple conferences, and I never know where like it came from. But just to like bring everybody on track, Evelyn is joining Morgan in the Arlington. So she's coming on with him. It's super exciting.
Yes.
And this is, again, why collaborations are so important, because you never know where you're going to land with the people you're around. Evelyn was doing some lasering at Ayana while they were waiting for Arlington to open so that patients could still be seen. And now she's bridging over full time with you, right?
Yeah, she's with me basically about 4 days a week. She is staying on with Ashley at Ayana for wellness, and then she's also doing wellness here. So again, like kind of like a collaboration within the collaboration. I mean, she's going to do wellness with Ayana. She's going to do wellness with me, which means there's that many more patients that will be available to come here for laser, to be at Ayana for injectable stuff. So, I mean, like, not to like continue to harp on the idea of like building that community, but when you have the community, there are so many things that you can lean on them for, not just advice, kind of like I'd said earlier, like, I mean, yes, do I lean on the gang for advice? Absolutely. But like, I can lean on Ashley for, she will send me patients for lasers. I will send her patients for other procedures that I don't do. Like, we share Evelyn as a great wellness nurse and an aesthetic provider at my practice. So like, there are ways that you will build these relationships with people over time that will be invaluable to you in this landscape. Not to harp on the specialty over industry, but like, if you look at it like a specialty, then two providers that are in the same specialty will generally work together pretty well in most cases. If you have a provider that wants to pretend like it's an industry and then another provider that wants to practice like it's a specialty, those two don't always necessarily get along very well, because one is very, self-focused on how am I building me and stepping over everybody else to do it. And the other one is like, I want to provide the best possible treatment. If it's not with me, I want to know that I can trust somebody else to do it. And hopefully that will be reciprocated when those people send me their patients for something that I'm really good at. Because there's obviously, at that point, there's probably some things that you're really good at, and you hope that other people see that.
Yeah. And I don't want to downplay like that point. Like, I think we've all been stepped over. Like, I think like, Morgan and I were joking before we started recording that we're both like losing our minds, and that we feel like, for any more products right now, like I owe tens of thousands of dollars. Like, I have no money. I have no this. Like, we're all experiencing it. And like, our whole point in this gang is to like normalize that feeling. Like, there are going to be people that are going to be really mean to you. And it hurts when it happens, and you think, why am I being slighted right now? Or like, why are you? And this will be complete strangers that'll say these things to you at conferences, at trainings. I mean, it's happened to a lot of us. So don't think that it's just you specifically, because I had a trainer be really nasty to me one time, and I just thought like, oh, okay, well then that's not going to work out for us in the future with anything, probably. But this is my pep talk. Just keep your chin up. It's going to be okay. And just really, you just got to find your way, and you just got to build those relationships. And it's hard.
It is. We try to provide, like this podcast. I've loved listening to all the other episodes, because it's like a nice refresher of like, it's not just all, what did somebody say to me? It's not just all, yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, it's not just all Gucci and Louis, kids. You do actually have to put your nose to the grindstone to succeed. I mean, really in anything, but like, and this, it is still healthcare. It is still a specialty. We do still have to do a lot of training. Understanding devices might take a trip to like the ASLMS, which is someplace I'm going in Baltimore next weekend. It's the big laser conference. I will probably be there like nerding out real hard. So if you come see me, expect me to be like all excited about pulse widths, wavelengths, nanometers, hand pieces. Like, ooh, what's the new like dual technology out there now?
No, I love that. And please, if you ever see any of us out, like, you can always walk up to us. We're all very normal people. We're all like, hey, we'll actually have more imposter syndrome than you will having coming up to us and saying like, hi. Like normal human beings. We're just like, you can ask Morgan anything, you can email him, but
yes, please
tell everybody about Multiplier, when it is,
So yeah, to learn more about all the things we talked about on this podcast, and just honestly get some one-on-one time to chit chat with me about all the things, laser or otherwise. Aesthetic Multiplier is June 2nd and 3rd. It is at the Pendry Hotel at the Wharf, so Southwest DC. Aestheticmultiplier.com, at Aesthetic Multiplier. You can honestly go on my Instagram page is at MG Injector Artistry. So any of those places will have the link to register. I know there's still slots open. We try to keep it a small conference, so you do have time to talk to us about anything you want and listen to everything that we have to say while we're up there, like kind of running through our whole life stories as aesthetic specialists.
We are. No, I love it. I love that you and Ashley are cultivating that kind of environment for everyone to be a part of. And I love that it's small and intimate, because conferences can get overwhelming and it's intimidating to people that are new.
Yeah.
But go ahead and give us your email. You give us your Instagram handle.
Yes. So yeah, the Instagram at MG Injector Artistry. Just to remind you, the email is mgale, Gale, as I like to say, like the wind, or Dorothy. A lot of people don't know Dorothy Gale's last name was Gale. So it's mgale at aestheticartistrymd.com.
Perfect.
You can email me anytime. You can DM me. I mean, I answer my DMs. I'm not that cool. Like I don't like not answer DMs. I'll if you DM me, I'll be like, yeah, let's talk. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
You know, I love talking about this stuff with everybody. So anybody that wants to chat with me about aesthetics, about lasers, about life in this world, hit me up.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we link everything in the bio as well for this podcast, so that you can find us in case we didn't spell it out clearly or you missed it, so you don't have to rewind. We will always have that information available. You can follow us at the Aesthetics Injector Gang on Instagram. You can find me either at Spindrift Aesthetics or at Injector Valerie. I'm down here in St. Pete. If you ever need anything, you can reach out to any of us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I will see Morgan in 1 week, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes. Grand opening of the Aesthetic Artistry Arlington office, as in like the grand opening where we do like the ribbon cutting and, get all the pomp and the circumstance, Yeah.
Arlington location, Aesthetic Artistry, the 11th, right? What time?
April 11th. It's Thursday, April 11th. It is from 3 to 7 p.m. The ribbon cutting is at 4:30. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some raffles. We're going to have some cool things going on there. And then obviously you get to come see the new space and hang out with me and Evelyn and Val. I think I don't know about most of the gang, but a bunch of the gang will be there.
Brandon will be speaking at Am Spa. He will be on this. I don't know what Brandy's doing, Sarah. I don't know what happened. We never know what any of us are doing until
48 hours notice. That's all you get.
And then Morgan will be down here in Tampa during my grand opening, which is going to be 3rd. Yeah, because we're doing ribbon cutting, everything, same thing. So we look forward to seeing you guys and celebrating, achievements and failures, because there's no such thing as failure. It's all a learning.
Yes. Ooh, that's a good one. We should put that on a shirt. There's no such thing as failures. It's just learning.
It's just learning. It's just learning what not to do next time. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up and DM us any of your questions. This was great, Morgan. We'll do part 2 at some point because there's too much to unload.
I was going to say, we'll do parts 2 through 6. It'll be like it'll be like the chapter book series that nobody ever thought they wanted, but they all loved.
But okay, I'm going to click end. Brandon's not here, so I may hang up on you. I may not, but it was great talking with you.
It was great talking to you too.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and comment. Follow us on Instagram at the Aesthetics Injector Gang.